Old School RuneScape first opened its doors on February 22nd, 2013, and it all began because of a player poll that asked the community if they wanted to return to the game as it existed back in 2007. Over 400,000 players voted in favor, an overwhelming show of nostalgia and passion that convinced Jagex to bring the older version back. When players logged in for the first time, it was like stepping into a time capsule. The graphics, the mechanics, and even the quirks were all frozen in time from August of 2007, with no grand exchange, no summoning skill, and no evolution of combat. For many, it felt as though their childhood had been restored overnight. At the start, Jagex's plan was to keep Old School RuneScape exactly as it was, with no new updates. It was meant to be a preserved museum piece for those who wanted to relive the past. But it quickly became clear that the community wanted more than just a frozen game. To balance preservation with innovation, Jagex introduced the polling system that became one of the most defining features of Old School RuneScape. Any proposed update had to achieve a 75% approval rate from players in an official in-game poll before it could be added. This system gave players unprecedented control over the future of the game, creating a sense of ownership that strengthened the bond between Jagex and its community. At first, the game ran on just a handful of servers. Some players even doubted whether Old School RuneScape would last more than a year. But those doubts quickly faded as the player count surged, and what started as a nostalgic side project soon grew into a thriving world of its own. The polling system also began shaping the game's destiny in surprising ways. For example, when the community was asked if they wanted new bosses, the answer was a resounding yes. This led to the creation of enemies like the Corporeal Beast, returning in popularity, and brand new monsters like Zulrah, which tested players in ways they had never experienced back in the 2007 era. In the early days, gold farming was a serious issue, especially because Old School RuneScape launched without the Grand Exchange. All trading had to be done through direct player interaction, just like it had been in the past. This brought back memories of players shouting trade offers in Varrock West Bank, but it also gave scammers and merchants plenty of opportunities to exploit newcomers. Some players loved this free market chaos, while others longed for the convenience of the Grand Exchange. Eventually, the Grand Exchange did return, but only after it passed the 75% poll threshold. Even then, it was implemented carefully to preserve the old school feeling of the game. What's remarkable about the rebirth of RuneScape through OSRS is how quickly it developed its own unique identity, separate from RuneScape 3. While RuneScape 3 leaned into modern graphics and ability-based combat, Old School RuneScape became known for its simplicity, its grind, and its sense of authenticity. Players celebrated the fact that combat was still click-based, that leveling still took hundreds of hours, and that every rare drop carried the thrill of effort and patience. The arrival of Iron Man mode gave OSRS another defining feature. This special mode required players to be completely self-sufficient, with no trading, no handouts, and no assistance from others. Every item, from food to armor, had to be earned by the player themselves. This playstyle added an extra layer of challenge, and soon Iron Man accounts became a badge of honor. Hardcore Iron Man took it even further, adding permanent death to the mix. One mistake, one lag spike, or one miscalculated encounter could erase hundreds of hours of progress. Entire communities began to watch hardcore Iron Man players with fascination, following their stories like high-stakes adventures where every decision mattered. When Old School RuneScape was just a few years old, Deadman Mode was introduced, shaking things up even more. This seasonal game mode turned the entire world into a dangerous battlefield where players could attack each other almost anywhere. If you were killed, you lost some of your progress, creating an intense and adrenaline-filled experience unlike anything else. Deadman tournaments even offered real-world cash prizes, drawing competitive players who fought not only for glory, but also for life-changing sums of money. These tournaments were streamed to huge audiences, putting OSRS in the spotlight and showing that its old-school charm could still compete with modern games in terms of excitement and spectacle. As Old School RuneScape grew, so did its world. Raids were introduced, something that never existed in the 2007 version of the game. The Chambers of Xeric was the first raid, set in the mysterious lands of Xia, and it demanded teamwork, skill, and strategy. Later, the Theater of Blood raised the bar even higher, offering one of the toughest challenges the game had ever seen. These raids pushed players to coordinate and innovate, and they gave rise to countless stories of triumph and defeat. For the first time in Old School RuneScape, players felt the thrill of group content on a massive scale, and raids quickly became some of the most beloved activities in the game. The Inferno took this spirit of challenge to another level. Introduced as the ultimate solo PvM experience, it tested players through wave after wave of brutal enemies, culminating in a final battle against Tiskalzuk, one of the hardest bosses ever designed in the RuneScape universe. Only a tiny fraction of players have ever completed the Inferno, and the Fire Cape from the older Fight Caves was replaced by the Infernal Cape, a glowing reward that instantly signaled mastery and dedication. To this day, seeing a player wearing the Infernal Cape is a mark of prestige in the OSRS community. Despite all of these changes and expansions, Old School RuneScape never lost its nostalgic core. It retained the charm of its simple art style, the joy of grinding for a skill cape, and the thrill of player-driven stories that unfold in its vast world. What started as a nostalgic experiment in 2013 became one of the most successful MMO revivals of all time, proving that sometimes the past isn't just worth preserving, it can thrive in the present. One of the most defining aspects of Old School RuneScape is its dedication to skills and the long grind that comes with them. Every skill maxes out at level 99, and reaching that point requires millions of experience points. Unlike many modern MMOs that shower players with fast leveling systems, OSRS has always taken pride in the journey being slow and meaningful. When you see someone wearing a skill cape, you know that they've put in hundreds of hours to achieve it. That kind of prestige makes achievements feel weighty, and it's one of the reasons Old School RuneScape has retained such loyal fans over the years. The very first player to achieve all level 99s in Old School RuneScape was a player named Lynx Titan, who became legendary within the community for his grinding ability. His dedication was staggering, and over time he went on to push even further, reaching beyond the base maximum experience to achieve more than 200 million experience points in every skill. In the OSRS community, Lynx Titan is almost treated like a mythical figure, proof that sheer persistence can conquer even the longest grinds. Skilling itself in OSRS is often more than just numbers on a screen. It becomes part of the game's culture. Woodcutting, for instance, has long been associated with the tranquil act of chopping yew or magic trees, with countless players gathering in Sears Village or around Varrock to talk while they train. Fishing carries a similar sense of community, with popular spots like Catherby or Barbarian Village, filled with players idly chatting while catching lobsters, sharks, or trout. These skills may seem repetitive on the surface, but they create a sense of comfort and ritual that makes them beloved. Some skills also have quirky histories in OSRS. Take firemaking, for example. For years, it was considered one of the least useful skills in the game, often mocked as being purely cosmetic or just lighting logs on fire. But with the release of Wintertot, a massive group boss that uses firemaking as its core mechanic, the skill suddenly became valuable and even profitable. Wintertot turned firemaking from an afterthought into a community activity where dozens of players work together to fight the cold and keep the pyres lit. For many Ironmen, Wintertot also became a key way to train early skills while gathering resources, proving how Old School RuneScape has a way of reinventing even its most overlooked mechanics. Agility is another skill that's unique in its design. Unlike many other skills that are straightforward, agility offers shortcuts around the game world. Training it is famously repetitive, with players running around rooftop courses for hours, but the benefits are immense. Higher agility levels mean faster energy restoration and access to time-saving routes, and for players who value efficiency, it becomes one of the most important grinds. The rooftop courses themselves even became social hubs, with groups of players running in circles for hours, chatting as they work toward the elusive 99 cape. Then there's rune crafting, often regarded as one of the slowest and most painful skills to train. It requires gathering essence, running back and forth to altars, and crafting runes one inventory at a time. The sheer amount of time it takes has made the rune crafting skill cape one of the most respected in the game. When you see someone wearing it, you know they've endured thousands of trips and an almost unmatched level of patience. At the same time, runecrafting plays a critical role in OSRS's economy, as it supplies the runes that fuel magic, one of the most important aspects of combat. This balance of difficulty and necessity makes runecrafting a cornerstone of the old school experience. Construction is another fascinating skill in OSRS, as it allows players to build and customize their own houses. At first glance, it may seem like just a fun side feature, but player-owned houses quickly became central to the game. They provide teleportation options, altars for prayer training, and even entertainment rooms with games. High-level construction is notoriously expensive, as it requires massive amounts of oak or mahogany planks, but the benefits are so useful that many players dedicate themselves to the grind. Socially, player-owned houses also gave rise to hosting, where players would open their houses for training prayer or using portals, turning construction into a shared community service. Slayer, however, might be the most beloved skill of all. Introduced in the original RuneScape in 2005 and carried into Old School RuneScape, Slayer requires players to take on specific tasks assigned by masters. This creates variety in combat training and encourages exploration of different monsters across Gielinor. The skill is popular not just for the experience it offers, but also for its lucrative drops. Some of the rarest and most valuable items in the game, like the Abyssal Whip or the Trident of the Seas, come from Slayer creatures. Many players even say that training Slayer is the only way they can tolerate combat grinding, because it mixes things up and always provides a sense of purpose. The sense of pride that comes from finishing a skill grind is unmatched. The level 99 capes themselves are some of the most sought-after rewards in the game, each with unique colors and emotes. Wearing one is more than just cosmetic. It's a public declaration of dedication. And for those who go further, reaching the max total level of 22, 77, or even pushing for the ultra-rare completionist achievements. The journey becomes legendary. In Old School RuneScape, the grind isn't just gameplay, it's part of the culture, a shared understanding among players that perseverance is at the heart of the adventure. Through these skills, Old School RuneScape has created an ecosystem where patience, community, and persistence matter just as much as skill in combat. Whether it's the meditative rhythm of chopping logs, the teamwork of Wintertot, or the exhausting dedication of runecrafting, every grind tells a story. And those stories, stitched together, form the backbone of the Old School RuneScape experience, proving that sometimes the slow road is the one worth traveling. Quests in Old School RuneScape are more than just tasks. They're stories that shape the world and give players a deeper sense of purpose. One of the charming aspects of OSRS is that its quests aren't simply endless fetch missions. Instead, they often contain quirky humor, puzzles, and even moments of genuine emotion. Take Cook's Assistant, for example. It's the very first quest most players encounter, where you're asked to gather flour, milk, and eggs so that the cook in Lumbridge Castle can bake a cake. On the surface, it's incredibly simple, but it's also the starting point of a tradition where RuneScape quests blend lighthearted errands with the foundations of a much larger adventure. For many players, finishing Cook's Assistant is the first step into a lifelong relationship with Gielinor's storytelling. Some quests in OSRS are remembered for their length and complexity. Recipe for Disaster is often considered the ultimate quest in the game, not because it has the hardest boss fights, but because it ties together so many characters and storylines. Released in multiple subquests, it challenges players to rescue banquet guests by solving problems, fighting bosses, and gathering ingredients across the world. Completing Recipe for Disaster rewards players with Barrow's gloves, some of the strongest gloves in the game, making it a rite of passage for serious adventurers. Even today, the quest is seen as a milestone, and players often reminisce about the sense of accomplishment when the final battle is completed. Then there are quests that dive into the darker corners of RuneScape lore. Desert Treasure, for instance, is famous for introducing the Ancient Magic's spellbook. It sends players across dangerous lands to defeat powerful bosses, unlocking ice, blood, shadow, and smoke spells that completely change the way magic is used in combat. The quest's reputation for difficulty made it a benchmark for skill and patience. To this day, when someone mentions Desert Treasure, veteran players instantly recall the struggle of fighting bosses like Camille and Desus, or the pride of unlocking ancient magics for the first time. Some quests in OSRS are loved for their humor and quirky charm. The Fremennik Trials is a perfect example, where players are asked to prove themselves worthy of joining the Fremennik people. Instead of traditional tests of strength, the trials include performing in a drunken bard contest and convincing townsfolk of your worth. The quest is filled with lighthearted dialogue and oddball tasks that make it a memorable break from the grind. This balance between humor and challenge is part of what makes OSRS quests stand out compared to other MMORPGs. Another questline that captured players' imagination is the Myrek series, set in the dark swamps of Mauritania. These quests introduce a hidden resistance group fighting against the vampires who rule the land. With its eerie atmosphere, oppressive villains, and ongoing storyline, the Myrek saga felt like RuneScape stepping into more serious and immersive storytelling. For many players, these quests were some of their first experiences with darker, more mature themes in the game, and the struggle against the vampires remains iconic. It's also worth noting how Old School RuneScape's questing system has unique mechanics that set it apart. Unlike many MMOs, OSRS doesn't highlight objectives on a map or spoon-feed players with quest markers. Instead, you often rely on dialogue, riddles, and exploration. This design choice makes every quest feel like a puzzle, where paying attention to details actually matters. For example, in Ernest the Chicken, players must solve a mansion full of mechanical contraptions to rescue a man turned into a chicken. Without a walkthrough, it can feel like a genuine mystery to solve, and that's part of the charm. Quest rewards also shape the OSRS experience in meaningful ways. Unlocking the Fairy Ring network through Fairy Tale Part 2 opens up one of the most convenient travel systems in the game, giving players quick access to remote areas. Similarly, completing Monkey Madness not only offers experience, but also unlocks access to dragon scimitars, which became a staple weapon for mid-level players. These rewards turn quests into more than just stories. They become key milestones in player progression. Some quests even create entire legends within the community. The quest Dragon Slayer was long regarded as the toughest challenge for free-to-play players, requiring them to face the mighty dragon Elvarg. Beating Elvarg was a badge of honor, proving that you had the skill and determination to succeed. To this day, the Green Dragon's lair in Crandor holds a special place in the memories of countless adventurers. Completing Dragon Slayer unlocks the ability to wear rune plate bodies, and for many, buying that first set of rune armor after the quest was a rite of passage. Quests also introduced some of RuneScape's most beloved characters. The Wise Old Man of Draenor, for example, became iconic after his role in Swan Song, a blue party hat wearing mage with a mysterious past. He represents the playful, slightly chaotic personality of RuneScape's lore. Bob the Cat, who appears in multiple quests, is another fan favorite, reminding players that humor and absurdity are part of the game's DNA. Even the Lumbridge guide, who greets new players, has become a nostalgic figure, embodying the game's mix of practicality and charm. With over 100 quests available in Old School RuneScape, the stories stretch across continents, weaving together history, myth, and humor. They introduce gods and goddesses like Guthix and Saradomin, legendary weapons like the Staff of Armadil, and hidden factions like the Majorat. For some players, completing quests is the highlight of the game, offering a break from skilling in combat to dive into mysteries and adventures. The Quest Cape, awarded for completing every quest in the game, is one of the most respected achievements, not just for the time it takes, but for the dedication to exploring every corner of Gielinor's lore. Quests in Old School RuneScape aren't just side content, they are the heart of the game's storytelling. Each one, from the silly to the epic, contributes to a living, breathing world where history, culture, and humor intertwine. They give players reasons to travel, to discover, and to keep returning to Gielinor's lands. And as OSRS has continued to grow, new quests have been added carefully, always respecting the spirit of the old game while expanding the legends that make RuneScape unique. Boss fights in Old School RuneScape are more than just encounters, they're landmarks of progression and stories of triumph. One of the earliest bosses to stand out in the Old School era was the King Black Dragon. Lurking deep in the wilderness, this three-headed beast was originally one of the scariest foes in the game. By the time OSRS launched in 2013, the King Black Dragon was no longer the most powerful monster, but it retained its prestige as a classic challenge. For many players, Venturing into its lair for the first time was a rite of passage, often filled with nerves as they fought both the dragon itself and the ever-present danger of player killers lurking nearby. Another boss that became iconic in OSRS was the Calphite Queen. Found in the sandy desert, this massive insectoid enemy had two distinct phases, forcing players to adapt strategies mid-battle. The thrill of bringing friends into the Calphite lair and facing the queen together was unforgettable. Her drops, like the dragon chain body, became legendary symbols of wealth and achievement. Even though the Calphite Queen has since been overshadowed by newer, tougher bosses, she remains an enduring piece of RuneScape's heritage. Old School RuneScape also brought its own original bosses to life. Zulrah, released in 2015, quickly gained a reputation as one of the most profitable and challenging solo bosses. This serpentine creature resides in a swampy shrine and forces players to memorize rotations, switch prayers, and adapt quickly. The challenge of learning Zulrah's mechanics turned it into both a deadly foe and a lucrative farming spot. The chance of receiving a rare, unique drop, like the Tanzanite Fang or Serpentine Visage, made every kill exciting, and for many Ironmen, defeating Zulrah for the first time was a moment of pride. The Abyssal Sire is another unique creation of OSRS. This grotesque, tentacled monster was added as a Slayer boss, requiring a high Slayer level to access. Its eerie design and mechanics, such as disabling vents and dodging poison, gave players an unsettling but thrilling challenge. Drops like the Unsired, which could transform into valuable weapons like the Abyssal Bludgeon or the Abyssal Dagger, added further excitement. The Abyssal Sire highlighted how OSRS could take existing lore, like the mysterious Abyssal Demons, and expand it into new, creative encounters. Perhaps one of the most ambitious additions in Old School RuneScape was the Chambers of Xeric, the game's very first raid. Released in 2017, this raid revolutionized PvM in OSRS by introducing group content that scaled dynamically based on team size and skill. Each raid was procedurally generated, meaning the order of rooms and challenges changed every time. At the end awaited the great boss Olm, a massive serpent-like creature with devastating special attacks. The Chambers of Xeric offered unique rewards like the Twisted Bow, one of the strongest weapons in the entire game, which instantly became a status symbol. For many players, their first successful raid felt like a once-in-a-lifetime achievement, especially given the coordination and endurance required. Not long after, the Theater of Blood arrived, raising the bar even higher for difficulty and teamwork. Set in the vampiric castle of Versinhaza, this raid demanded perfect coordination across multiple boss rooms. Every fight within the theater had its own mechanics and unforgiving punishments for mistakes. At the end, players faced Lady Verzik Vatur, a boss so challenging that even experienced raiders wiped countless times before securing victory. The Theater of Blood became famous not just for its intense difficulty, but also for its rewards, which included the Scythe of Vatur and Grazi Rapier. To this day, it stands as one of the ultimate tests of skill in OSRS. For solo players, the ultimate challenge became the Inferno, introduced in 2017. Located beneath the Tsar city, it is an upgraded version of the original fight caves. Waves of increasingly difficult monsters lead up to the final confrontation with Tskal-Zuk, a massive boss with mechanics that require flawless movement and decision-making. The reward for completing the Inferno is the Infernal Cape, a glowing red cape that instantly signals mastery. Only a small fraction of players have ever earned one, making it one of the most prestigious items in the game. Seeing someone in an infernal cape is a reminder of both their skill and their perseverance. Old school RuneScape bosses aren't just about combat, they're also about the communities that form around them. The giant mole, for instance, became one of the most hunted bosses not because it was particularly difficult, but because it was accessible and profitable. Groups of players would spend hours underground chasing the mole through tunnels, sometimes competing with each other to secure kills. Similarly, bosses like the Dagonoth Kings became popular for their trio-style fights, where each king represented a combat style. Players had to balance their gear and tactics to survive, and the chance at rare drops like berserker rings made the effort worthwhile. Community-driven stories often emerge from boss hunting. Players remember their first pet drops miniature versions of bosses that follow their character as companions. Pets like the tiny Zulrah, Lil Zik from the Theater of Blood, or the Omelette from Chambers of Zarek are more than just cosmetic companions. They're symbols of luck, persistence, and bragging rights. Entire communities form around the chase for these rare pets, and screenshots of them being received are proudly shared in clan chats and forums. Bossing in old school RuneScape captures the essence of what makes the game special. It mixes nostalgia with innovation, combining classic encounters like the Calfight Queen and King Black Dragon with modern challenges like Zulrah, raids, and the Inferno. Each boss represents a story of patience, coordination, and triumph, and together they form one of the most exciting parts of OSRS's identity. Whether it's the thrill of finally defeating a raid boss after hours of practice, the joy of seeing a unique item appear in your loot chest, or the pride of wearing an infernal cape, bossing defines old school RuneScape's spirit of challenge and reward. The wilderness has always been one of the most defining features of RuneScape, and in old school RuneScape, it carries the same mix of danger, excitement, and unpredictability that it did back in the 2007 era. It is a massive zone in the north of Gielinor where normal rules of safety no longer apply. Here, players can attack one another almost anywhere, risking their hard-earned items with every encounter. Stepping into the wilderness creates a tension that few games can replicate. Even if you're just there to kill green dragons or gather ores, the constant threat of another player appearing on the horizon adds an adrenaline rush to the most mundane tasks. Many of the most famous stories in OSRS come from the wilderness. Player killers, often called PKers, specialize in ambushing unsuspecting adventurers. Clans of PKers dominate hotspots, setting traps and overwhelming solo players who wander in. Some adventurers enter the wilderness fully expecting to fight, bringing their best gear and supplies, while others gamble with minimal equipment in hopes of making a quick profit without drawing too much attention. It is this delicate balance of risk and reward that has kept the wilderness alive for decades, even as other MMOs have abandoned similar mechanics. Within the wilderness, there are special bosses that add even greater stakes. The Chaos Elemental, for example, is a floating, unpredictable monster that can teleport players away mid-fight, disarm them, or deal heavy damage when they least expect it. Then there's Callisto, a massive bear that smashes through even the toughest defenses, or Venenatus, a giant spider known for its brutal ranged attacks. Vedion, a skeletal champion of Zamorak, rounds out this group of wilderness bosses, each one offering the chance at valuable loot, but also luring PKers to the area in search of prey. Hunting these bosses is never just about the fight itself, it's about surviving both the monster and the players waiting in the shadows. PvP in OSRS isn't limited to the wilderness. Dedicated arenas like the Duel Arena became notorious as hubs for competitive combat and, unfortunately, high stakes gambling. Players would stake items or gold against each other in duels, with fortunes won and lost in seconds. For many, the Duel Arena was a thrilling side activity, but it also developed a darker reputation as a place where scams and addiction thrived. In more recent years, its influence waned as Jagex sought to reduce the problems associated with it, but the Duel Arena remains etched into the memory of countless players who risked everything on the outcome of a single fight. Deadman Mode took the tension of PvP and amplified it to a whole new level. Introduced in 2015, Deadman Mode was a seasonal game mode where players could attack each other almost anywhere in Gielinor. Death came with brutal consequences. You could lose a significant portion of your progress, including items and experience. This created an environment where paranoia reigned supreme. Even stepping into a bank felt dangerous, as you never knew who might be waiting to strike outside. Deadman Mode tournaments became some of the most exciting events in OSRS, with real-world cash prizes on the line. The final hours of these tournaments were often streamed to massive audiences as hundreds of players clashed in chaotic battles until only one remained. One of the most fascinating aspects of Deadman Mode was how it reshaped player behavior. Clans banded together not just for dominance, but for survival. Alliances were formed, betrayals occurred, and strategies evolved with every season. The Deadman world felt like a parallel dimension where the normal rules of OSRS no longer applied. The thrill of making it to the late stages of a Deadman tournament, knowing that every fight could spell disaster, is something players still talk about years later. Beyond Deadman Mode, other PvP-centered content has kept the wilderness alive. Bounty Hunter, for example, assigns players specific targets to hunt down, rewarding them for seeking out particular enemies rather than randomly attacking anyone. This helped structure wilderness activity and created a cat-and-mouse dynamic where you never quite knew who might be on your trail. Bounty Hunter points could be exchanged for special rewards, further incentivizing players to dive into PvP. Clan wars also play a big role in OSRS PvP culture. Organized battles between hundreds of players break out in the wilderness, with both sides strategizing gear setups, attack calls, and tactics. These massive wars create unforgettable moments, sometimes lasting for hours, as each side refuses to back down. Videos of such battles have circulated for years, showcasing the scale and drama of OSRS clan warfare. To this day, the wilderness is one of the few places in gaming where you can find large-scale battles driven entirely by players rather than scripted game mechanics. What makes PvP in OSRS so memorable is not just the combat itself, but the stories it creates. Players recall the sting of losing their best gear in an ambush, the thrill of outsmarting a PK and escaping with valuable loot, or the joy of surprising an enemy with a perfectly timed attack. These stories are retold across forums, YouTube videos, and Discord servers, becoming part of the collective memory of the community. Even players who avoid the wilderness altogether still feel its impact, as the constant threat of PvP shapes the economy, the meta, and the culture of old school RuneScape. At its core, PvP in OSRS represents the game's philosophy of risk versus reward. Whether it's the traditional wilderness, the spectacle of Deadman Mode, or the intensity of clan wars, every fight carries weight. Losses hurt, victories feel exhilarating, and the knowledge that your choices matter keeps players coming back. In a world where many online games prioritize safety and accessibility, Old School RuneScape dares to preserve danger and unpredictability. That commitment is what makes its PvP culture so legendary. The economy of Old School RuneScape is one of the most fascinating aspects of the game, and it plays out like a living, breathing stock market. Every item has value because it comes from the efforts of players, whether that's a rare boss drop, a crafted weapon, or raw materials gathered through skilling. Unlike many games where loot appears out of thin air, OSRS runs on a player-driven system, meaning that behind every stack of coins or set of armor is someone who earned it. This creates a world where prices rise and fall based on real supply and demand, and fortunes can be made or lost with a single clever trade. When Old School RuneScape launched in 2013, the Grand Exchange didn't exist. Trading was entirely done through player-to-player interaction. Varrock Westbank, Falador Park, and World 2 quickly became hotbeds for barter, with players spamming offers in chat windows. Buying or selling anything often meant standing in crowded areas, shouting for attention, and haggling directly. While this system created plenty of nostalgia, it also came with problems. Scams were rampant, merchants took advantage of new players, and completing even a simple trade could take hours. Eventually, the community polled for the return of the Grand Exchange, and when it passed, with over 75% approval, the trading hub was carefully reintroduced into OSRS. The Grand Exchange, located in the heart of Varrock, changed everything. With its simple interface, players could buy and sell items automatically without needing to shout in public areas. Prices were updated constantly, creating a visible economy that anyone could participate in. For some players, the Grand Exchange became their entire game. They didn't hunt bosses or complete quests, they studied market trends, flipped items for profit, and built fortunes through sheer economic strategy. Items like nature runes, dragon bones, and popular weapons became key commodities for merchants, and players who understood the rhythms of the market could grow rich without ever lifting a sword. There are countless stories of clever trades that made players wealthy. One of the most famous money-making methods was flipping, where a player would buy an item at a low price and sell it moments later at a higher price, repeating the cycle for profit. Over time, flipping became an art form, with entire guides dedicated to predicting which items would rise or fall in value. Some players even compared it to playing the stock market, checking prices daily and treating their RuneScape wealth like real-world investments. High-value items have always carried their own mystique in OSRS. Party hats, scythes, and Santa hats were discontinued years before Old School RuneScape was created, so they don't exist in this version of the game. Instead, iconic OSRS items like the Twisted Bow, the Scythe of Vitur, and the Elder Maul became the new status symbols. The rarest of these items could fetch hundreds of millions of gold pieces, making them out of reach for most casual players. Owning one of these weapons was a way to signal prestige and dedication, and for some, it became the ultimate goal. The economy also thrives on consumables items that players need constantly. Prayer potions, sharks, runes, and teleportation tabs are always in demand, ensuring a constant flow of money-making opportunities for those who gather or craft them. For Iron Man players, who can't trade on the Grand Exchange, the absence of this system adds an entirely different layer of challenge. They must farm every resource themselves, creating a personal economy where efficiency and planning are just as important as combat. Gold itself has become a fascinating subject in OSRS. For years, third-party gold selling has been a problem, with real-world traders offering to sell OSRS gold for actual money. Jagex has fought against this with bans and account wipes, but the demand has never truly disappeared. This underground economy has created controversies, but it has also highlighted just how valuable virtual wealth in OSRS can feel. For some, their bank accounts in RuneScape carry the same emotional weight as real-world savings. One of the quirkiest aspects of the OSRS economy is how certain updates can completely shift item prices. For example, when a new boss is released that drops a specific rare item, prices of related gear can skyrocket. Players preparing for raids might suddenly drive up the cost of potions, food, or special weapons, and merchants who anticipate these changes can make huge profits. Similarly, bug fixes or rebalances can cause markets to crash overnight, wiping fortunes off the board. This constant flux makes the economy feel alive, as if the entire world of OSRS is shaped by invisible forces beyond any single player's control. The Grand Exchange has also created a social hub in its own right. Standing around the central fountain in Varrock, players gather not only to trade, but also to show off their outfits, pets, and rare items. It's common to see crowds form around someone wearing a twisted bow or an infernal cape, with other players asking questions or simply admiring their achievements. In this way, the Grand Exchange is more than a market. It's a stage where the community comes together to display their successes. Even with the Grand Exchange, some aspects of the economy still thrive outside of it. Services like firemaking at Wintertot, construction hosting in player-owned houses, or even paid help with difficult quests all form side industries where trust and word of mouth matter as much as gold. In a game where almost everything has a price, creativity often leads to new ways of earning wealth, proving that the OSRS economy is as diverse as its player base. At its heart, the Old School RuneScape economy reflects the core philosophy of the game. Effort and reward are deeply linked. Every coin earned comes from time invested, whether through combat, skilling, or clever trading. The Grand Exchange may have streamlined the process, but it hasn't removed the sense of value that makes every piece of gold feel meaningful. In OSRS, wealth isn't just numbers on a screen, it's the story of how you got there, the risks you took, and the adventures you had along the way. The community of Old School RuneScape has always been one of the most vibrant and creative in online gaming. Unlike many modern titles, OSRS thrives because of the way its players create stories, jokes, and traditions that exist entirely outside the control of Jagex. In fact, much of what makes OSRS memorable isn't just its quests or bosses, but the countless moments where players themselves shaped the culture. One of the most enduring memes in the OSRS community is the phrase, bank standing. This refers to players who spend hours doing nothing but standing in banks, talking with others, or idly checking their gear. While it may sound silly, bank standing has become a kind of social activity in itself. Entire friendships form while players hang out in banks like the Grand Exchange or Varrock West, chatting while they take breaks from the grind. It reflects a core part of OSRS culture. The game is just as much about being present in the world as it is about completing objectives. Another famous cultural moment is the Falador Massacre, an event from the original game that is still referenced in Old School RuneScape today. In June 2006, a player named Duriel321 exploited a glitch during a house party and gained the ability to attack others outside of the wilderness. What followed was absolute chaos as Duriel rampaged through Falador, killing players and looting their items. Even though this event happened before the launch of OSRS, the legend of the Falador massacre has remained so strong that many newer players know about it through videos and retellings. In Old School RuneScape, people often reference it as a symbol of the game's unpredictable and player-driven history. OSRS also has a strong tradition of inside jokes. Phrases like "selling rune simi," "nice bank bro," or "where's Zezima" carry meaning far beyond their literal words. Zezima, in particular, became one of the most famous RuneScape players of all time, achieving top ranks in the original game and becoming something of a mythical figure. Even though Zezima doesn't dominate Old School RuneScape in the same way, the name still appears in chat rooms and memes, symbolizing the idea of the ultimate player who seems almost untouchable. Pets have also become a major part of community culture. When someone receives a pet drop, like the tiny Zulrah snake or the miniature Olm from Chambers of Xeric, it's often announced in chat for everyone to see. Players gather around to congratulate them or express their envy, and screenshots of pet drops are shared across forums and social media. The rarity of these pets makes them highly prized, and owning one can spark endless conversations in clan chats. They've even inspired jokes, like players pretending their pet is more valuable than their gear, or using it as an excuse to brag about their luck. Another aspect of OSRS culture is the ongoing debate about efficiency. Some players take the game extremely seriously, planning every action down to the minute for maximum experience per hour. Others push back against this mindset, joking that efficiency is just playing the game less. This tension has created a playful rivalry between hardcore grinders and casual players, with memes and banter constantly flying back and forth. In a way, it highlights how flexible OSRS can be. One person might spend hundreds of hours carefully optimizing their training, while another might just enjoy fishing and chatting, and both experiences are valid. Community events often emerge spontaneously. Drop parties, where wealthy players throw items on the ground for others to grab, are one of the most beloved traditions. Sometimes, these are organized to celebrate milestones, like a clan anniversary or someone achieving a maxed account. Other times, they're chaotic affairs, with players racing through crowded rooms, desperately clicking to grab whatever rare items might appear. The excitement of these moments captures the social spirit of OSRS, where generosity and fun sometimes take precedence over grinding. Streamers and content creators have also played a huge role in shaping OSRS culture. Platforms like Twitch and YouTube host countless hours of boss fights, skilling challenges, and meme-filled videos that keep the community engaged. Some of the most memorable moments in recent years have come from streamers tackling high-risk content like the Inferno or Deadman tournaments, with thousands of viewers watching in suspense. These broadcasts often become shared cultural touchstones, uniting the community in excitement or laughter. Memes in Old School RuneScape also thrive because of the game's quirks. For example, the iconic Sea Shanty 2 music track has become almost a mascot for the game, with fans remixing it, playing it in orchestras, and even using it as background music for unrelated memes. Something as simple as a cheerful song from Port Sarim evolved into a cultural phenomenon that represents the nostalgia and charm of OSRS. Similarly, the awkward walking animations Outdated graphics and simplistic dialogue boxes often inspire jokes that the community embraces rather than hides. Perhaps the strongest part of OSRS culture is the sense of shared history. When a player says they remember staying up late chopping yews, or the nerves of their first Barrows run, or the excitement of finally affording their dragon scimitar, others instantly understand. These shared memories tie the community together across continents and generations. Even new players quickly learn the references, becoming part of a culture that values not just the game itself, but the stories and camaraderie it creates. In the end, the culture of old school RuneScape proves that the heart of the game isn't in its graphics or mechanics, but in the players who inhabit it. The jokes, memes, and traditions that emerge from the community make OSRS more than just an MMO. They make it a living world of stories and laughter. It's why the game continues to thrive decades after its creation, and why stepping into Gielinor always feels like returning to a familiar home filled with friends, humor, and history. Old school RuneScape isn't just about grinding skills, completing quests, or battling bosses. Part of its charm comes from the wide range of minigames and side activities that offer breaks from the usual routine. These minigames often combine competition, teamwork, and rewards, and over the years, they've become some of the most beloved pieces of content in the game. Castle Wars is perhaps the most iconic of them all. Nestled under the White Knight's castle in Gielinor, Castle Wars is a capture-the-flag style game where two teams battle to bring each other's standard back to their base. On the surface, it's lighthearted fun, but it quickly becomes a battleground of strategy and chaos. Players catapult rocks at enemies, build barricades, and sneak through underground tunnels in hopes of snatching victory. For many, Castle Wars was their first taste of large-scale PvP outside the wilderness, and it became the social hub of minigaming in the early days of RuneScape. Even now, Castle Wars armor, like the decorative sets, remain nostalgic reminders of countless hours spent in battle. Pest Control is another minigame that carved its place in RuneScape history. Located on an island defended by the Void Knights, Pest Control requires teams of players to defend a central portal while destroying enemy gates. The reward system introduced Void Knight equipment, including the Void Armor set, which quickly became a staple for mid and high-level players. Efficient players found ways to maximize points per hour, turning Pest Control into both a grind and a social activity. Entire worlds filled with players who came together for quick runs, and it created memories of teamwork and friendly competition. Barbarian Assault is a cooperative minigame that emphasizes roles and coordination. Teams of 5 take on the roles of attacker, defender, collector, and healer, working together to defeat waves of penance creatures. What makes Barbarian Assault stand out is how each role depends on the others. Attackers can't function without healers. Collectors need defenders to keep things under control, and communication becomes key to survival. The reward, the fighter torso, is one of the most famous pieces of gear in the game. Not only is it powerful, but it's also a badge of honor for anyone who endured the long grind of Barbarian Assault. Another beloved minigame is the Tsar Fight Cave, which eventually led to the creation of the Inferno. The Fight Cave was one of the earliest true survival challenges in RuneScape, tasking players with enduring 63 waves of increasingly difficult monsters. At the end waits Tsogjod, a giant beast known for its devastating attacks that require perfect prayer switches to survive. Defeating Jod rewards the Fire Cape, one of the most prestigious items of its time. The Fire Cape became a symbol of dedication and skill, and many players still remember the nerves of their first attempt, the heart-pounding moment of switching prayers correctly, and the sheer relief of finally winning. The Mage Training Arena is a quirky minigame that combines combat with puzzle-like mechanics. Located in the desert north of Al-Kharid, it offers 4 different rooms where players practice magic in unique ways. From moving objects with telekinetic spells to turning bones into bananas, the arena tests creativity as much as combat. While it can feel repetitive, the rewards like the Infinity Robes and the Bones to Peaches spell make it worthwhile. The Mage Training Arena highlights RuneScape's ability to blend humor and grind into something oddly satisfying. Then there's the Blast Furnace, which technically isn't a minigame, but feels like one due to its mechanics and cooperative nature. Located in Keldagrim, the Blast Furnace allows players to smelt bars more efficiently, especially when working together. Teams often divide labor, with some pumping, others adding ore, and others collecting the finished product. For Iron Man players, the Blast Furnace becomes an essential tool for crafting their own gear, while for others, it's a profitable and oddly social skilling method. Trouble Brewing, located on the island of Mosla Harmless, is one of the most unique minigames in OSRS. Teams of players compete to brew rum by gathering ingredients, managing resources, and sabotaging opponents. While not as popular as Castle Wars or Pest Control, Trouble Brewing has a loyal following of players who enjoy its chaotic, pirate-themed fun. The rewards include the colorful pirate outfit, which has become a fashion statement for those who love to show off their minigame adventures. Another fun piece of OSRS culture comes from Clan Wars, a minigame that allows groups to fight one another in controlled arenas. Unlike the unpredictability of the wilderness, Clan Wars gives structure to large battles. Clans can fight in safe matches for practice, or in dangerous matches where items are at stake. The sheer scale of these battles, with dozens or even hundreds of players clashing at once, creates unforgettable spectacles. Clan Wars has long been a favorite for competitive groups looking to prove their dominance without the chaos of open-world PvP. Minigames in OSRS also carry a deep sense of nostalgia. Games like Gnome Ball or Fishing Trawler may not be the most efficient activities, but they remain beloved for their quirky charm. Fishing Trawler, for example, is a cooperative activity where players patch holes in a leaky boat while trying to haul in a catch. The constant chaos of fixing nets, bailing water, and avoiding sinking makes it frustrating for some, but endearing for others. The rewards, like access to the angler's outfit, give players a reason to return even years later. All of these minigames, whether competitive, cooperative, or just silly distractions, highlight the playful side of old school RuneScape. They remind players that the game isn't only about grinding stats or chasing loot, it's about enjoying time with others in a shared space. Whether you're building barricades in Castle Wars, praying for a fire cape in the fight caves, or laughing with friends as your fishing trawler sinks for the 100th time, minigames bring joy and variety to the world of Gielinor. They may not always offer the best experience per hour, but they offer something just as valuable, memories that last a lifetime. One of the most charming traditions in old school RuneScape is the annual cycle of holiday events. Every year, special seasonal activities are added to the game, celebrating Christmas, Halloween, Easter, and sometimes smaller occasions. These events are usually lighthearted, offering fun activities and cosmetic rewards rather than serious challenges. For many players, they bring a break from the grind and add a sense of whimsy to the world. A Christmas event might have you helping Santa Claus deliver presents, while a Halloween event might involve chasing mischievous ghosts. These events change every year, making them little time capsules of the community's shared experiences. Holiday rewards are often cosmetic, and though they don't provide gameplay advantages, they carry immense sentimental value. Reindeer hats, skeleton costumes, and Easter carrot weapons may not make you stronger, but wearing them instantly sparks conversations. Players reminisce about which events they attended and share stories about their favorite seasonal activities. It's a reminder that in OSRS, identity isn't just about combat stats, it's also about self-expression and nostalgia. In the original RuneScape, discontinued holiday items like party hats, Santa hats, Halloween masks, and scythes became legendary because they were never re-released, turning them into some of the most valuable items in the game. Old School RuneScape took a different approach. Holiday items in OSRS are reintroduced or redesigned every year, meaning they aren't discontinued and don't skyrocket in value the same way. While this disappointed some collectors, it also ensured that everyone could participate in the fun without feeling left out. The spirit of the holiday events remains the focus, rather than creating exclusive markets for the lucky few who were around at the right time. Still, OSRS has its share of rare cosmetics and fashion statements. Party hats, for example, exist in Old School RuneScape, but only as decorative temporary holiday rewards. They don't carry the same billion coin value as their RuneScape 3 counterparts, but they're beloved nonetheless. Many players collect holiday items just for the memories, filling their banks with snow globes, pumpkin masks, and silly weapons that remind them of years past. For some, logging in during a holiday feels like attending a community festival where everyone comes together to celebrate in their own way. Beyond holidays, cosmetics and OSRS have created their own culture of fashionscaping, dressing up purely for style rather than utility. While combat gear like Bandos armor or the twisted bow might show off wealth and power, fashionscapers pride themselves on creative outfits that combine obscure items into unique looks. Sometimes, entire communities form around fashion competitions, where players gather to show off their most stylish ensembles. This playful side of the game proves that even in a world dominated by grinding and efficiency, creativity and individuality still shine. Pets also fall into the category of cosmetics that carry massive prestige. These miniature versions of bosses and creatures are among the rarest drops in the game, with odds sometimes as low as 1 in several thousand. Seeing someone with a pet, like the Lil Zik from Theater of Blood, the Omelette from Chambers of Xeric, or the Inferno's Gielinor, instantly sparks admiration. Pets don't provide any gameplay advantage, but they're coveted as trophies, walking proof of both luck and dedication. Some players dedicate entire months to grinding a single boss just for the chance at a pet, and when they finally receive one, it becomes a personal badge of honor. Other cosmetics gain fame through their association with challenges. The fire cape from defeating Jad in the Fight Caves was once considered one of the greatest achievements in RuneScape, instantly recognizable as a symbol of skill. Later, the Infernal Cape from the Inferno raised the stakes, glowing with fiery prestige and proving its wearer had conquered one of the hardest pieces of content in the entire game. Wearing these items doesn't just mean you've completed a challenge, it means you've earned the respect of the community. Rare drops from bosses also fuel the cosmetic culture of OSRS. Items like the Bandos chestplate, Armadyl Godsword, or Scythe of Vitur are more than just powerful equipment, they're status symbols. Owning them shows not only that you've beaten some of the game's toughest content, but also that you've accumulated the wealth to hold on to such treasures. In a world where wealth is a tangible measure of effort, these rare items are as much about prestige as they are about utility. Seasonal modes like Dead Man Mode and Leagues also offer unique cosmetic rewards. Special armor recolors, weapon skins, and outfits earned from these events can't be obtained anywhere else. Players who participated proudly display them as proof of their involvement. These cosmetics tell stories of surviving Deadman chaos, of climbing to the top of League's leaderboards, or of simply being present during an unforgettable season. They remind the community that RuneScape isn't static. It's constantly evolving, with each year leaving behind unique tokens of its history. Even humble cosmetics carry meaning in OSRS. A silly rubber chicken weapon, a zombie walk emote, or a Santa suit might not have the monetary value of a twisted bow, but they connect players to memories. They're icebreakers, conversation starters, and reminders that old school RuneScape isn't only about the grind, it's also about shared experiences. Ultimately, holiday events and cosmetics highlight the lighter side of old school RuneScape. They don't make you stronger or richer, but they make the game feel alive with culture, humor, and identity. Whether it's dressing up in a pumpkin mask, proudly showing off a rare pet, or wearing an infernal cape as a symbol of triumph, cosmetics tie the community together in ways that stats and combat never could. They remind everyone that OSRS is more than just numbers. It's a world where memories, achievements, and even silly costumes have a value all their own. One of the most magical aspects of old school RuneScape is its soundtrack. For a game that runs on such simple visuals, the music carries incredible power to stir nostalgia and emotion. Every area in Gielinor has its own track, and many of them are instantly recognizable to players who spent hours in those places. Unlike many modern games that use orchestral scores recorded by full bands, OSRS music is composed in a distinct MIDI style, giving it a light, digital charm that feels timeless. Even though the instruments are synthetic, the melodies carry a warmth that resonates deeply with players. Perhaps the most famous track of all is Sea Shanty 2. Originally composed for the port town of Port Sarim, the tune is jaunty, cheerful, and endlessly catchy. What started as a simple background song became a cultural phenomenon. Players began celebrating it as the unofficial anthem of RuneScape, remixing it into countless genres from heavy metal to orchestral symphonies. Sea Shanty 2 has been played live at gaming conventions, performed by choirs, and even turned into memes across social media. Its popularity shows how something as small as a background track can become a cornerstone of gaming culture, and for many players, hearing those first notes instantly transports them back to their childhood adventures. Beyond Sea Shanty 2, the soundtrack is filled with gems. Harmony, which plays in Lumbridge, is one of the earliest and most beloved tracks. It greets new players as they begin their journey, and its gentle notes have become a nostalgic anchor for anyone who has ever walked through the castle gates. Scape Main, the default login music, is another unforgettable piece. For countless players, logging in and hearing Scape Main was the sound of stepping back into a second home. Even now, the track has a calming effect, reminding players of simpler times when the world of Gielinor stretched endlessly ahead. Other tracks became tied to specific experiences. Wilderness, with its eerie tones, heightened the tension of PvP zones. Autumn Voyage, often heard during early game exploration, captured the feeling of wandering into unknown lands. Tracks like Adventure and Venture reflected the excitement of quests and discovery, while darker songs like Body Parts or The Tower created an atmosphere of unease in dungeons and haunted areas. The range of the soundtrack is impressive, moving from playful to ominous, always enhancing the mood of the game. What makes the music of OSRS so powerful is that it doesn't overwhelm the experience. The tracks are short, looping pieces, often under 2 minutes, that repeat endlessly as you play. This minimalism means the songs embed themselves in memory through sheer repetition. Chopping trees in Sears's village, fishing in Catherby, or training agility in Al-Kharid rooftops, the music from those areas becomes permanently tied to those activities. Years later, players can hear just a few notes and instantly recall the grind, the chat conversations, and the small victories of those moments. The community has embraced RuneScape's soundtrack in unique ways. Entire YouTube channels are dedicated to remastering and orchestrating the tracks. Musicians around the world have covered them on piano, guitar, violin, and even full symphony orchestras. Sea Shanty, too, in particular, has become a fan favorite for live performances, often drawing crowds who hum along with the tune. Jagex itself has acknowledged this by releasing official remastered soundtracks and even hosting live orchestral concerts celebrating the music of RuneScape. One fascinating detail is how music is unlocked in OSRS. Players don't start with the full soundtrack available. Instead, songs are unlocked by visiting areas or completing quests. This system makes music part of progression. When you step into a new area and a fresh track begins to play, it feels like a reward for exploration. Many players cherish the moment when their music tab fills up with unlocked tracks, seeing it as a collection of memories earned through their journey. Sound design in OSRS extends beyond music. The sound effects themselves, while simple, are iconic. The sharp clang of a pickaxe against rock, the bubbling of a fishing spot, or the satisfying crunch of leveling up with the ding sound are all burned into memory. Even the click of eating food during combat carries its own nostalgic weight. These sounds, like the music, may seem small, but they become deeply associated with the hours spent playing. For some, the sound of chopping logs or catching a fish is as relaxing as a meditation track. Voice acting is minimal in OSRS, but that's part of the charm. Dialogue is almost entirely text-based, allowing players to read at their own pace and imagine the voices of characters themselves. This simplicity adds to the timeless quality of the game, making it feel like an open book where the community fills in the details. Combined with the quirky sound effects and iconic MIDI tracks, it creates a unique sensory experience that has kept players engaged for decades. It's worth noting that some tracks in OSRS became memes within the community. Sea Shanty 2 is the most famous, but others like Shanty Pass, which plays at the desert checkpoint, or Garden, which plays in the Falador Park area, have been celebrated for their odd charm. Players often joke about how these tracks, which were never meant to be more than simple loops, now inspire full orchestral arrangements and professional covers. It's a testament to the strange and wonderful culture of OSRS that such humble music has had such a massive impact. The music of Old School RuneScape isn't just background noise, it's part of the soul of the game. It ties together memories, creates atmosphere, and gives the world a unique identity. From the cheerful rhythms of Sea Shanty to the eerie tones of the wilderness, each track tells a story, and while the visuals of OSRS may be simple, its music ensures that every corner of Gielinor feels alive. For many players, Those MIDI melodies will always be more than just songs. They'll be the soundtrack of their childhoods, their friendships, and their adventures across a timeless world. One of the reasons Old School RuneScape remains so captivating is because it gives players the chance to leave their mark on history. Every skill, boss kill, and achievement is tracked, and the high scores system makes those feats visible to the entire community. From the moment OSRS launched in 2013, competition became fierce, with players racing to be the first to reach max levels, unlock rare items, and break records that most people could only dream of. Perhaps the most famous name in the history of Old School RuneScape is Lynx Titan. This player became a legend by being the first to achieve 200 million experience points in every single skill. Considering that most people struggle just to reach 99 in one or two skills, Lynx Titan's achievement is staggering. It required countless hours of dedication, and his name became a permanent fixture in discussions of the game's greatest grinders. Even those who never met him in-game know the name, and it has become shorthand for describing someone with superhuman persistence. But Lynx Titan wasn't the only player to become famous. Zezima, a name that carried mythical status in the original RuneScape, still lingers in the culture of OSRS. While Zezima didn't dominate the old school leaderboards in the same way, his legacy remained so strong that players continued to ask, "Where's Zezima?" years after OSRS launched. It became a kind of inside joke, a way for players to connect through shared nostalgia. Zezima symbolizes the idea of the unreachable top player, the one who seemed to exist on a different level entirely. Another major milestone in OSRS history was the race to max total level. Reaching every skill's level cap is one of the hardest achievements in the game, requiring mastery across combat, skilling, and patience. The first players to achieve a max cape were celebrated like celebrities, and even today, wearing that cape is a mark of incredible dedication. For many, it represents not just skill, but years of consistent effort. And for those who take it even further, pushing toward the elusive completion of 200 million experience in all skills, the journey becomes almost unimaginable in scope. Boss kill records also create legends within the community. Players compete to achieve world-first completions of raids like the Chambers of Xeric and Theater of Blood. Being part of the first team to bring down Lady Verzik Vitor or to conquer Ulm isn't just an achievement, it's a moment that becomes part of OSRS history. The names of those players are remembered long after the fights, etched into the collective memory of the community. Speedrunning also plays a big role, with clans and teams competing to clear raids or bosses faster than anyone else. These records are constantly broken and rebroken, creating an ongoing saga of competition. Iron Man mode introduced another layer of prestige. Playing without trading or outside help transforms every achievement into something even more impressive. High-level Ironmen who defeat bosses like Zulrah, complete raids, or max their accounts earn immense respect because they did it all without the assistance that normal accounts can rely on. Hardcore Ironmen take it even further, adding the risk of permanent death. When a hardcore Ironman dies, a skull icon is permanently marked on their high scores entry, a reminder that their journey ended. Some of the most famous players in OSRS are hardcore Ironmen who managed to achieve incredible feats before meeting their eventual fate. Deadman tournaments created their own roster of legends. These competitive events, streamed to thousands of viewers, crowned champions who walked away with real-world prizes. Winning one of these tournaments required not only skill in combat, but also strategy, preparation, and nerves of steel. Players who triumphed became household names within the OSRS community, admired for their ability to thrive under extreme pressure. These tournaments blurred the line between in-game prestige and real-world recognition, proving just how high the stakes could climb. World records in skilling also highlight the creativity of OSRS players. Some dedicate themselves to efficiency, breaking records for the fastest times to 99 in various skills. Others take on bizarre challenges, like reaching high levels using only unusual methods. These feats often inspire admiration and amusement, showing that even in a game defined by repetition, there's endless room for innovation. Watching someone achieve 99 firemaking entirely at Wintertot or grind rune crafting to 200 million experience is both awe-inspiring and slightly baffling to the average player. Clans and groups also carve their names into history through mass events. Some organize world record attempts for the most players gathered in one place, while others coordinate massive boss hunts or skilling parties. These collective efforts demonstrate the power of community, showing that OSRS isn't just about individual achievements, but about shared accomplishments that bring people together. Screenshots of these events often circulate for years, immortalizing moments when hundreds of players came together to make history. The high scores themselves carry a mystique that fuels competition. Scrolling through the leaderboards, seeing names etched at the top sparks both envy and admiration. Many players use the high scores as motivation, setting personal goals to climb just a little higher. For some, reaching the first page of a skill leaderboard feels as rewarding as obtaining a rare drop, because it means their name is permanently visible to anyone curious enough to look. In a game where progress is slow and effort is immense, even a small movement up the high scores can feel like a triumph. Ultimately, the records and legendary players of Old School RuneScape remind everyone that the game isn't just about grinding in solitude. It's about the collective story of a community where dedication, skill, and even obsession create legends. Names like Lynx, Titan, and Zazima may stand out the most, but every player who pushes the boundaries of what's possible contributes to the history of OSRS. The high scores are more than just numbers. They're a living chronicle of ambition, persistence, and the incredible feats that define the game's culture. Old School RuneScape has always thrived on its ability to keep the game fresh without losing its old school charm, and nowhere is this balance more evident than in the creation of seasonal game modes like leagues. Leagues are limited-time events that place players into alternate versions of Gielinor with unique rules, accelerated progression, and powerful relics that change the way the game is played. They offer a chance to start fresh, experiment with mechanics that would be impossible in the main game, and compete against others on leaderboards. The very first league, called Twisted League, launched in late 2019. Players were restricted entirely to the continent of Zaya, an area that many felt had been underused in normal OSRS. Suddenly, every activity had to be adapted to this limited map. Relics allowed players to supercharge their abilities, like gaining increased experience rates or teleporting more efficiently. The result was a chaotic, thrilling environment where the usual slow grind of OSRS was transformed into a fast-paced race for points and rewards. Twisted League was a massive success, drawing players back in droves and proving that experimental game modes could become a cornerstone of OSRS. Following Twisted League came Trailblazer League, which many consider one of the most popular events in OSRS history. In Trailblazer, players began in Misthalin, but could unlock additional regions of the map as they progressed. Choosing which regions to unlock became a strategic decision, as it determined what resources, quests, and bosses you could access. Relics again added wild power-ups, like doubling resource yields or dramatically boosting combat abilities. The combination of choice, strategy, and accelerated gameplay made Trailblazer addictive, and it captured the imagination of both casual players and hardcore grinders alike. Each league brings its own set of rewards, usually in the form of cosmetic items that can be brought back to the main game. These rewards include things like ornate armor recolors, unique pets, and fashionscape items inspired by the theme of the league. For example, Trailblazer offered a fiery recolor for the graceful outfit, one of the most popular skilling gear sets. These cosmetics instantly signal that a player participated in a league, turning them into badges of honor. Because they can't be obtained again once the league ends, they also serve as permanent reminders of those limited time experiences. Beyond leagues, Old School RuneScape has experimented with other seasonal events. Deadman Mode was one of the earliest, turning the entire world into a PvP battlefield where players could lose progress upon death. Deadman tournaments were streamed to thousands of viewers, with real-world cash prizes on the line. The intensity of these events made them unforgettable, and some of the most legendary OSRS moments came from Deadman finales, where hundreds of players clashed in chaotic battles. Even those who never participated often tuned in to watch, treating the tournaments like esports spectacles. More recently, Jagex introduced Group Iron Man mode, which allowed friends to team up in a cooperative version of the Iron Man challenge. For years, Iron Man mode was seen as a solitary journey where players relied solely on themselves. Group Iron Man flipped that concept by letting small teams share resources, strategize together, and carve out their own unique adventures. It became an instant hit, as players who had always wanted the Iron Man experience, but didn't want to do it entirely alone, finally had the perfect option. Holiday seasonal events also add variety. While Christmas, Halloween, and Easter bring playful quests and silly rewards, OSRS has used these events to test experimental content. Sometimes, mechanics introduced in holiday events serve as prototypes for future minigames or activities. Players get a lighthearted event to enjoy, and Jagex gathers feedback to see what works. This cycle of experimentation and iteration is part of why OSRS has remained fresh, despite being rooted in a game from 2007. Leagues in particular have created their own subculture within the OSRS community. Players eagerly speculate about new relics, potential restrictions, and theme ideas long before the official announcements. Some prepare elaborate strategies for maximizing points, while others simply dive in to enjoy the chaos. Leaderboards track the best performers, and climbing to the highest tiers has become a prestigious achievement. Entire clans form around competing in leagues, sharing tips, and racing to unlock relics. What makes leagues so beloved is that they compress the RuneScape experience. In the main game, progression takes months or years, but in leagues, you can feel powerful and accomplished in just days. This accelerated pace scratches an itch for players who love OSRS but don't always have the time to commit to its famously slow grind. At the same time, it never feels like it cheapens the main game, because leagues are temporary worlds where the rules are intentionally bent. Once the event ends, everyone returns to the standard version, refreshed and often more motivated to continue their long-term goals. The rewards for participating in leagues also feed into the broader culture of fashionscape and prestige. Seeing someone wearing a Trailblazer ornament kit or wielding a League-themed weapon skin sparks curiosity and respect. These cosmetics are permanent reminders that the player was part of something special. They create layers of identity within the community, marking out those who experienced events that will never be repeated. In a game so focused on history and tradition, these badges of honor carry real weight. Together, leagues, deadman tournaments, and seasonal events highlight one of OSRS's greatest strengths: its ability to evolve while staying true to its roots. They let players experience Gielinor in entirely new ways without taking anything away from the main game. They create memories that are unique to their time, shared only by those who logged in and participated, and they prove that old school RuneScape isn't just about preserving the past, it's about building a future shaped by both the developers and the community, one experiment at a time. For all the quests, bosses, and skills in old school RuneScape, perhaps the most powerful part of the game has always been the friendships formed within it. From the earliest days, OSRS has been more than just a place to grind experience points. It has been a social world where players meet, talk, and build bonds that sometimes last a lifetime. Clans are at the heart of this social fabric. Long before Jagex introduced official clan support, groups of players formed their own communities, organizing through forums, IRC chats, and later Discord servers. These early clans often focused on specific activities, like PvP in the wilderness, boss hunting, or skilling events. Even without in-game features, players created ranks, hierarchies, and codes of conduct, turning simple friendships into organized communities. When official clan systems were eventually introduced into OSRS, it only gave structure to something that had already been thriving for years. PvP clans, in particular, built reputations that stretched across servers. Some specialized in high-risk wilderness battles, where hundreds of players would clash in coordinated wars. These fights weren't just chaotic brawls, they were carefully strategized affairs, with leaders calling targets and members practicing formations. Victory wasn't measured only in loot, but in pride and reputation. To belong to a feared PvP clan was to be part of a legacy, and many of these names are still spoken with awe or nostalgia today. On the other side of the spectrum were skilling clans, communities dedicated to the quieter pursuits of OSRS. These groups would organize skilling parties, where members gathered at the same spot to train together. Woodcutting at Sears's village or fishing in Catherby became social events filled with chatter, jokes, and encouragement. For some players, these clans offered a sense of belonging and motivation, making the long grinds more enjoyable. Achievements like reaching 99 in a skill or unlocking a rare pet were celebrated collectively, with entire clans cheering for one member's success. Bossing clans also became central to OSRS culture. Content like Chambers of Xeric and Theater of Blood is notoriously difficult, requiring coordination and trust. Bossing clans provided training grounds for newer players, teaching them mechanics and strategies. Over time, bonds formed through countless raids, with victories and failures alike becoming shared stories. For many, their first successful raid completion wasn't just an individual achievement, it was a moment shared with friends who had supported them along the way. Friendships in OSRS often go beyond the game itself. Stories abound of players meeting in Gielinor only to carry their relationships into the real world. Some meet up at RuneFest, the annual convention celebrating RuneScape, while others form lasting friendships across continents. There are even countless tales of couples who first met while skilling or questing together, eventually marrying in real life. In this way, OSRS becomes more than a game. It becomes a space where lives intersect in unexpected and meaningful ways. Social hubs within the game also reinforce this sense of community. Places like the Grand Exchange, Lumbridge Castle, or World 330 house parties are filled with players chatting, trading, and showing off. Some spend more time socializing than grinding, proving that OSRS can be as much about conversation as it is about progression. Bank standing, once seen as a joke, is actually a perfect symbol of the game's social nature. Sometimes the joy isn't in the adventure itself, but in being surrounded by others while you're part of it. Events organized by players further enrich the culture. Drop parties, clan anniversaries, and in-game weddings are common, with entire groups coming together to celebrate milestones. These events often involve fun competitions, games of hide and seek, or races across Gielinor. The rewards may be small, but the memories created are priceless. Screenshots from these gatherings often end up on forums or social media, immortalizing moments where players chose to celebrate together rather than chase experience or loot. Iron Man and hardcore Iron Man players, despite their solo restrictions, also form tight-knit communities. These players may not trade or directly assist one another, but they share strategies, stories, and encouragement. Watching a hardcore Iron Man achieve a fire cape or defeat Zulra creates waves of admiration across the community, with others inspired to try the same. Even in isolation, Iron Men find connection, reminding everyone that OSRS is always about shared experiences, even when the gameplay mode is designed for independence. The friendships built in OSRS endure because the game's pace allows for them. Unlike fast-paced shooters or games with constant action, Old School RuneScape often leaves space for conversation. Whether you're chopping trees, mining ore, or cooking food, there's time to chat with the people around you. This slower rhythm creates room for genuine connection, and it's why so many players look back on their time in OSRS, not just for the levels they gained, but for the friends they made along the way. At its core, Old School RuneScape thrives because of its community. The clans, the events, the social hubs, and the friendships all weave together into something greater than the sum of its parts. Gielinor is more than pixels on a screen. It's a shared world where laughter, rivalry, and camaraderie come alive. For many players, the truest treasure of Old School RuneScape isn't gold or rare drops, but the people they met while chasing those things. One of the most unique aspects of Old School RuneScape is how much control the players have over its future. When OSRS launched in 2013, Jagex promised that updates would only be added if the community approved them through in-game polls. Each poll required a 75% majority to pass, a system designed to protect the old school spirit of the game. This gave the community immense power, unlike almost any other MMORPG. Every new quest, skill, boss, or feature had to earn the player's blessing, and this democratic approach became both a strength and a source of controversy. The polling system led to fascinating debates. For example, when the Grand Exchange was proposed for OSRS, some feared it would ruin the nostalgic feel of standing in banks and shouting offers. Others argued it was necessary for convenience and to prevent scams. After heated discussion, the Grand Exchange passed, and today it's seen as an essential part of the game. This pattern repeated many times, with updates sparking weeks of community debate before the polls opened. It gave players a sense of ownership, but it also revealed deep divides between those who wanted to preserve the past and those who wanted to embrace progress. Some proposed updates failed their polls despite strong interest. Sailing, for instance, was once pitched as a brand new skill unique to old school RuneScape. The idea captured imaginations, but the details were vague, and when it came to a vote, it fell short of the 75% threshold. For years, sailing became a running joke in the community, symbolizing the difficulty of getting ambitious ideas past the polling system. Only recently has the concept resurfaced in a more refined form, with renewed chances of becoming reality. This shows how the poll system can slow down big changes, but also how it ensures that when something does pass, it has strong support. Controversies often arose when updates were perceived as too modern or pay to win. Bonds, for example, were introduced as tradable items that could be purchased with real money and then sold in-game for gold. This gave players a legal way to buy gold indirectly, and while it helped combat third-party gold sellers, it sparked debates about whether OSRS was drifting toward microtransactions. Similarly, discussions about cosmetics, convenience features, and quality of life improvements often divided the community, with some fearing that each step forward was a step away from the old school identity. The introduction of powerful items also caused rifts. When the Twisted Bow was released from Chambers of Xeric, its strength against magic-based enemies was unprecedented. Some players argued it broke the balance of the game, while others saw it as a fitting reward for completing difficult raids. Items like the Scythe of Vitur from Theater of Blood and the Nightmare Staff from the Nightmare stirred similar debates. Balancing new rewards with the old combat system has always been one of Jagex's greatest challenges, and every new item inevitably sparks conversations about fairness and power creep. Another controversy came with the release of the Wilderness boss reworks. The Wilderness has always been a lightning rod for debate, with players split between those who love high-risk PvP and those who avoid it entirely. Updating Wilderness bosses to make them more rewarding inevitably drew in both groups, leading to tensions between PvMers trying to hunt bosses and PKers lying in wait to ambush them. The Wilderness represents the rawest form of OSRS's risk versus reward philosophy, and every update to it is guaranteed to stir passionate arguments. Even the introduction of quality of life features sometimes faced resistance. Simple things like bank tabs, shift-click drop options, or faster training methods had to be carefully balanced. Some argued that these conveniences chipped away at the grind that defined RuneScape, while others welcomed them as long overdue improvements. Over time, many of these changes passed polls and became beloved staples, showing how the community gradually accepts modernization when it's done carefully. Perhaps the most dramatic controversies have been tied to game integrity. Botting and real-world trading have plagued RuneScape since its earliest days, and Old School RuneScape is no exception. Jagex has waged constant battles against bots, banning millions of accounts over the years. The community often debates whether enough is being done, especially when bots flood popular areas like the Grand Exchange or fishing spots. At the same time, players have celebrated major ban waves as victories for the integrity of the game, proof that the developers are listening and acting on community concerns. The polling system itself has not been without criticism. Some argue that requiring a 75% threshold makes it too hard for new content to pass, stifling innovation. Others believe the system is essential for preserving the spirit of old school RuneScape. Jagex has occasionally experimented with different approaches, like refining how questions are asked or giving more detail in advance, but the fundamental idea of community-driven approval remains one of OSRS's defining traits. Through all these controversies, one truth stands out. Old School RuneScape survives and thrives because its community cares so deeply. Every debate, whether about skills, items, or mechanics, comes from a place of passion. Players may disagree fiercely, but that intensity is what has kept the game alive for so long. In many ways, the controversies are proof of OSRS's strength, a reminder that it's not just a game run by developers, but a living world shaped by the voices of its players. Old School RuneScape is more than just a revival of a 2007 game. It has become a phenomenon in its own right, with a legacy that continues to grow. When Jagex first brought it back in 2013, even the developers weren't sure how long it would survive. It began as a nostalgic side project, intended for those who missed the good old days. Yet, over a decade later, OSRS is still thriving, with millions of players, constant updates, and a community as passionate as ever. Its continued success is a testament to the unique blend of nostalgia, challenge, and community-driven design that defines the game. One of the secrets to OSRS's longevity is its accessibility. While RuneScape 3 embraced higher-end graphics and modern combat systems, Old School remained simple enough to run on almost any computer, and later, even on mobile devices. The mobile release in 2018 opened the door to an entirely new audience. Suddenly, players could train skills or kill bosses from their phones, whether on the bus, at work, or relaxing at home. This flexibility breathed new life into the game, showing that its grind-heavy systems could adapt to modern lifestyles. For many, OSRS Mobile became their primary way of playing, proving that simplicity is sometimes the greatest strength. Another reason OSRS has endured is its deep sense of progression. Every level gained, every quest completed, every rare drop earned feels significant. Unlike games that hand out rewards quickly, OSRS makes you work for every milestone, and that effort makes achievements more meaningful. Seeing someone in an infernal cape, a max cape, or wielding a twisted bow instantly sparks respect because you know the countless hours that went into earning it. In a world where instant gratification dominates, OSRS's slow and steady pace stands out as refreshing and satisfying. The game's reliance on player input has also kept it alive. The polling system, while sometimes controversial, ensures that the community has a say in its evolution. This democratic approach fosters a sense of ownership where players feel that their voices matter, whether it's approving a new boss, debating the introduction of a skill, or deciding on quality of life updates. The community's influence keeps OSRS grounded in the values that make it special. It is rare for a game to give so much power to its players, and that relationship of trust has built loyalty that no marketing campaign could ever buy. Culturally, Old School RuneScape has achieved something remarkable. It has become a bridge between generations. Players who grew up in the 2000s now return as adults, sharing the game with friends, partners, or even their children. Meanwhile, new players discover OSRS through YouTube, Twitch, or mobile, joining a world that feels retro yet alive. This blending of old and new has given OSRS a timeless quality where nostalgia and discovery coexist. The game doesn't feel like a relic of the past. It feels like a living tradition, passed down and continually renewed. OSRS has also made its mark in the broader gaming industry. Many developers look at its success as proof that players crave meaningful progression and community-driven worlds. While flashy graphics and scripted content may dominate other games, OSRS shows that depth, freedom, and persistence can be even more powerful. It is frequently cited in discussions about the importance of player agency, long-term design, and the value of keeping older versions of games alive rather than discarding them. The stories that come out of OSRS are part of what makes it legendary. From epic clan wars in the wilderness to the tension of Deadman mode, from the joy of unlocking a pet to the heartbreak of a hardcore Iron Man death, every player has a tale to tell. These stories are shared across forums, social media, and video platforms, weaving a tapestry of experiences that enrich the game beyond its code. No two players' journeys are the same, yet all of them are tied together by the world of Gielinor. The community events also contribute to its legacy. RuneFest gatherings brought players together in person, transforming online friendships into real-world connections. Content creators and streamers have amplified OSRS's reach, drawing new audiences into the game through entertainment and education. Watching someone attempt the Inferno live, or seeing a streamer celebrate a long-awaited drop, creates collective experiences that unite the community. Even those who don't play actively often stay connected through the culture surrounding the game. Despite its age, Old School RuneScape shows no signs of fading. New updates, like the introduction of fresh raids, new quests, and even discussions about adding entirely new skills, prove that the game continues to grow. Each update is carefully crafted to fit within the old school philosophy, blending innovation with preservation. This delicate balance keeps the game feeling authentic while still offering reasons for players to return year after year. Ultimately, the legacy of Old School RuneScape lies in its ability to create meaning out of effort. Every log chopped, every fish caught, every boss defeated, and every friend made adds up to something greater than the sum of its parts. OSRS isn't just a game, it's a shared world where patience, dedication, and community define the experience. It has outlasted trends, weathered controversies, and continued to grow stronger with time. For many, it will always be more than entertainment. It will be a place of memories, friendships, and accomplishments that shaped their lives. Old School RuneScape proves that timeless design never goes out of style. It shows that games don't need cutting-edge graphics or instant gratification to succeed. What they need is heart, challenge, and a community that cares, and in all of these, OSRS excels. As long as there are players willing to log in, chop a tree, kill a dragon, or simply stand in a bank chatting, the world of Gielinor will continue to thrive, carrying its legacy into the future.